All right, my people of faith. Let's take another walk. Let's talk about the measurement of time. Time measurements or the measurement of time. We understand time by space. And what I mean by that, by the fulfillment of space, is the fulfillment of time for us. We know seconds, we know minutes, we know hours, we know days, weeks, months, yearly, so forth. However, yet with God, there is no time. Eternity is limitless, is boundless. Time, earthly time, or seasonal timing, has a beginning and an end, which factors restrictions. With God, there is no time. God's time is faith, and faith is always present. So if the scripture says a day with God is like as 1,000 years, it's not saying a day with God is 1,000 years. It's saying a day with God is as 1,000 years. That's for us to understand. With God, there is no time. It's a continuous motion. It is one flow. How did we're concerned about time because we're serving fear. If we don't, if something is not accomplished or something is not measured or something is not understood by this fear base, which we'll call time, we are in more fear. We are penalized. We are enslaved by it. This is why we labor the way we labor. This is why we serve the way we serve. This is how we apply and adapt and so forth. This is how we understand. This is where our knowledge comes from. More than likely, it's all fear based. But when we serve the King, when we serve Jesus, when we serve the kingdom of heaven, all that we have come to know and learn goes out the window. It's like understanding 2 plus 2 is 4. It plays a part when you serve in the natural because it's for distribution. Uh, the time constitution was to keep us out of trouble from the enemy. But yet and still, we serve time now. So now we are slaves to the enemy. The power that God has given us is faith. He has given every person the measure of faith, which is a seed of Him, that we can do and be in the image of Him. We can be as the image of Him. With God, there is no time. With us, there is no time. We are eternal. Yet, when we get into the body form or the natural form, we begin to serve time. So everything has to be at a pressured point. If it's not done at a such time, it's considered failure, unacceptable, is a lost. Because we are serving time, which makes us lost. In the fear dispensation, the construct of time is to serve fear. And to be led by fear is to serve death. But to serve Jesus or the pathway to Christ is to get out of time. So the scripture would say something like there's a time for this or a time for that. It's saying it's a point and a purpose for it. When you got a point and a purpose, there is no time. It's just a point and a purpose. Because the point and the purpose was established before the foundation of the world, before there was ever time, before there was ever a sun, before there was ever a moon. This is all thought. This is all what was inside God. So when God spoke, He released everything. That's why there's no time in the kingdom of heaven. When God spoke, it was. So when God spoke, said, "Let there be light," it was light. Let there be a sun, moon, and star. Let the sun, moon, they all know their purpose, their point. They don't have to fulfill time to fulfill their purpose and point. It's already in them to, I guess, to be sustainable to do their assignment, which is their point and purpose. Us, on the other hand, we don't know our point and purpose most cases, so we serve time to try to figure that out. There's a time. So, if we believe to have children, to have an heir, to to continue legacy or whatnot, we serve time. We say the biological clock, so forth, whatever. But if you ever notice, and this is the thing, when we come to serve God, we all that is out the window. So if a person such as the story of Abram and Sarah of Sarai, before they became Abraham and Sarah, Sarah, they were old in age and they didn't have children. And since Abraham had walked so far with God, he got close to him because he was walking by faith. God gave him a proposition, say, "I want you to leave from up under your household," which means where he was comfortable at, where his land was with his father's house, his father's people, so forth. They had a knowledge that God was trying to bring man back to him, and he was looking for such people uh, that had a heart, an open heart, to receive him. To receive God, then there was no Jesus. To receive God was the act of faith. So God will give you an assignment to establish that. We would call walking on the water. So he gave an assignment to Abraham. He told him to leave from his father's house, which was a huge act of faith because you asked him to leave everything that he come to know. So he left everything and he walked on God, and he became like this, the Hall of Fame. It's the Faith Hall of Fame, and it started with several others like Noah, so forth, and you know Abraham took it to another level. So anyway, and each is an example of the seed, what it is with God. So Abraham did that, and so he got close to God, and God gave him an offer. He said, "What would you like?" And he said, "By the age that I am, I would like to have a child, but I don't even, he don't even, he's too old. He's like 99 or 100, and Sarah is like 90. Well, she's up there in age." And so God said, "You'll have a child." Now, this for us in a natural sense, this is become impossible. Oh, this is impossibility, but this is where faith is insight and possibility. It passed all that. This is where God is like reign Lord over everything, because there's nothing impossible to him. He is existence, and everything exists through him. So if God were to say, if you have an impossible situation, say like if you have terminal cancer, uh, or what they say, fourth degree or whatever measure of the cancer, or HIV, or any kind of bone disease, or any kind of kidney failure or whatever that it can be, what fear wants to do is to put us in time constituents. I mean, not time. Well, I guess you could say time constituents, but it will put us up under authority to serve time. So, which makes it impossible to receive anything from God. But God is the act of faith. So, what he did with Abraham, he had said, "Well, you will have a child," and Abraham went ahead and kind of scoffed at it, whatever. All right, you said it, but his wife would laughed at it because look at her. I mean, she was like, "Look at me, look at him. It's impossible. That's crazy. That's that's just ridiculous to even think of that." But anyway, so By them serving fear and not believing in faith, they acted accordingly how we do. Well, maybe God meant to do it this way. So instead of God said, so if a person is they need like a new car, and God will say they don't have any money, and God will say, take this, take, so like if they got their last $5, and God will give them an assignment to say, all right, take this $5, and the first person you see coming up the street, give it to them. Fear would grip them so much because they're serving time that they won't step out on faith to believe that God can do the impossible, because they're stuck in the four walls of what they see, which is what they see is serving fear, which is serving death. So it's going to choke the faith in them because fear, death, all that is coming for the word's sake. It's coming from that seed of faith. Because if it ever grows, is the individual is unstoppable, or the seed of faith is unstoppable once it starts to grow. It's unstoppable. That's why there's no impossibilities when it comes to faith. But anyway, so if the person take the $5 and they don't give it to the person, now the faith is being choked because they caught up in the cares of the world. They caught up in the filthiness of riches. They caught up in the lust for other things. And it is impossible to please God with that. But if they were to act out on faith, what God can do is unthinkable to the natural, because the natural is serving death and serving fear. So you can't see in the spirit, which is unlimited time. There is no time in the spirit realm. It's invisible. That's why it's called eternity. It's one constant flow. It don't have to have a beginning and end because the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. It's all the same. So Abraham went ahead and he, I guess his wife or whatever, how it went, he decided that maybe God meant that he should sleep with one of the handmaidens, one of the servants, whatever, and have a child that way. Well, we know how that blew up. It became a disaster because the wife, the one who didn't have a child, well, got jealous or whatnot because she had the handmaid had something that she wanted, which to give her husband a child. But God promised was that they will have a child, those two. Now, if we're patient